right, we are live for the second to last SPFBO introduction panel, and I'm so excited because today we are having some Queen's Book Asylum blog authors on. You guys are, I think, maybe the first representing Queen's Book Asylum. For those who don't know, SPFBO or SPFBO is the self-published fantasy blog off organized by Mark Lawrence. And I myself, as well as 299 other authors, are all participating in the competition this year. All 300 books have been split among 10 blogs, so about 30 books per blog. And Queen's Book Asylum is one of those blogs. While I am not in that blog, I'm in Fantasy Book Critic. Everybody else you see here is Queen's Book Asylum this year. So why don't we go around? Hey, AF. Hey, everybody who's watching on YouTube and Twitter. If you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll pull them up. But why don't we just go around, introduce yourselves, a little bit about what kind of fantasy you write, because there's a lot of flavors of fantasy this year, and what book you've entered in SPFBO.
Okay, so is there like an order in which we go, or?
Why don't you go first? You'll kick us off. We'll do an alphabetical order. It'll be less confusing.
Okay. Hello, I'm Bogdan. I wrote a book called Galaxy of Thorns, Rise of the Empress. It's mainly dark fantasy. And it's it's not really because I see life in a dark way, but it's more like I like the dark and gritty things.
Yeah, all the emotions and how the characters.
I guess this is why I've been assigned to the asylum.
I can already get a sense that there's a lot of good humor going on in this group.
I have a few lines.
What book did you enter this year? Oh, you said Galaxy.
Galaxy of Thorns. I actually have like a volume here. So
I love
my book.
That
and also has back art as well.
I love that art.
That's a pretty big book too.
Yeah, it's a pretty big chunker.
Yeah. Is this your first year doing SPFBO?
Yeah, it's actually my debut novel. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Never imagined I would write one.
Yeah. Welcome to all the fellow newbies. Is it everybody else's first year? Is there anybody who's done it more than once?
It is my first year.
Glad I'm not.
First year.
Yeah, first year.
So many first years on these panels. I don't feel so alone. I remember when I started, I was just like, oh, I bet everybody else will have done this so many times, and I'm going to be one of the only new people. And then being on all of these and meeting like about 60 other people, almost everybody's doing it for the first time. And I was like, okay, we're good. Brendan, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your SPFBO book?
Well, hi, I'm Brendan. I wrote A Dagger in the Winds, which was the book I entered in. It's the first book in my series called The Frostmark Chronicles, which is inspired by Slavic mythology, particularly Polish and Ukrainian mythology. I'm 50% Polish, and so I took a lot of research into a lot of the mythos that often hasn't been written about in English, but there's a lot of it in the actual languages of Eastern Europe. So I tried to take some of that research and take it into both posts actually on my website and YouTube, but also put it into a fiction format to kind of take like the Percy Jackson effect of, the Greek mythology and kind of do that with the Slavic style of stuff. So this is my first time entering in SPFBO. I tried to do it last year, but I was a couple days too late by the time I even realized it was happening. So I decided to jump into it. And this series is YA epic fantasy. And so it's combining some of that, the darkness without quite being dark fantasy but Slavic mythology has a lot of demons and other dark elements to it. If you take any of the mythological stories, everything's related to crazy things happening in the woods and different elements about that, and demons and witches. And I try to take a lot of that into it. So it's epic fantasy combined with a lot of adventure fantasy throughout the series.
Nice.
There we go. Sorry, I'm having a tiny lag. We've had so many storms here, and my power and internet have been like off and on and off and on. Like, please hold out for this live. Yeah, I love that there's actually some YA representation this year and new adult too.
Yeah,
it's
there's
great to see.
someone put together a list. I saw in one of the groups that there was a list of YA. So we had a pretty good number. I don't think it's like even close to like a quarter, but there's a decent number, and it was good to see that representation.
Mhm, mhm. So good to have you. And I know I've seen you on Facebook around, so it's good to put a face with your name. I've never met any of these authors before. So everybody watching live, you're meeting them with me. Katherine, you're someone else whose name I've seen around on the Discord. Why don't you tell us a little bit, I can't talk, a little bit about your SPFBO novel?
So my name's Katherine. I write epic fantasy. My entry this year is Unwanted, which is the first book in the Emergence series. It's the first book, though, in my second series. So I have written a series before, but there is no way. Like, I'm proud of the first book of my first series that I've ever written, but I wouldn't enter that in SPFBO. In sort of my world, there's like a lot of fantasy, I guess. There's quite a lot of magic, but everybody has a base level. But at the start of this book, essentially, there are the first lot of people born with higher level powers, but most of them don't really know what they can do because there's just no one to teach them. So there's no equivalent of the grand poobah sort of wizard or some wise man sitting on a mountain somewhere. They have to kind of learn for themselves. But it's
I
also
actually love that so much.
so they do have their moments where they do things and people are going, how did you do that? And people going, got nothing, because they
Write
don't.
it down. Write it down.
It's like, okay, do that again slowly so we can all see what you did. But essentially, there's war going on. So there's just 3 civilizations all colliding together, and they're all warring for territory and survival of their own, basically.
Catherine, if I could jump in, I was interested. That's the first I've really heard of almost the scientification, almost of fantasy, almost in some of the magic, where you say, normally fantasy, there's some elements of understanding of the magic. So you're like, that's cool that there's that discovery effect. I haven't seen too much of that.
Yeah, I like playing with it. And so there's obviously some that emerged earlier. So they have a level of knowledge, but then one of the other main characters, he's relatively new to his powers. But even he can do things that the others have never seen before, and they're astounded by. So some of that element is actually fun to play with.
Awesome. That's gonna make for an interesting Easter egg later today, I think, on the panel. But Peter, welcome. I'm so excited to finally meet you.
Yeah, you too. So this is Return of Abaddon. It's my first book in the Scars of High Wreath series. It's not my first book I've written, but like Katherine said, it's the first one I would ever enter into SPFBO. But it's really in the epic fantasy genre and really kind of set in medieval sword and sorcery type of a world. Wilder, the main character, starts off in modern day Earth, and then something really traumatic happens with a helicopter crash, and mother dies. Not spoiling anything; it's on the back cover. But and so he's whisked off to this new world, High Wreath, and finds out he's tied to this prophecy regarding the return of Abaddon, who tried to conquer the world 2,000 years earlier. Was getting ready to do it. The Phoenixes vanquished him at the last minute, and he's kind of back to finish the job. And so Wilder's there, it's really YA. He's just graduated from high school, so I kind of wrote it with that in mind. But so he's there trying to come to grips with losing his mom. His dad had left, on the day of his birth, doesn't know him. All this happens, and so he's got to figure out how to deal with all this and find out if he wants to even be a part of this mess, right? So but that's the crux of it.
Awesome. So we got a YA with some darker themed fantasy there, sounds like.
Yeah, a little bit. Not too dark, but
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that Katherine and Peter, you both said, that wasn't your debut, but the first one you consider entering.
That's the
Whereas
same with me.
I'm more like Bogdan with, I actually entered my debut novel, The Violet Twisted Fate. And it was really a hard decision because I have another series. And now that I'm into SPFBO, and I see who is assigned my books, and I know based on their Goodreads what they like. I wish I had done the newer series because I know my writing's more polished, and it's a whole lot darker and a whole lot less romancy. This one was an epic fantasy, and it had a side romance, just more epic and less dark. But it was my debut. It has a special place to me. So I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And so that's how I ended up putting my debut in. And yeah, so I'm curious to know, since you're all newbies like me, what was your experience like submitting to SPFBO for the first time? Did you come in with any expectations? Was it a last minute decision? How did it go?
I came in with the thing that I would put it in, and maybe my book might get a little bit more coverage than it normally would, expecting that I'm going to be like punted at some point, particularly since I actually checked out some of the competition, as I'm sure a lot of us did, and went, oh, that one's already shortlisted for awards, and so is that one, and so is that one, and that one's got over 1,000 reviews, and there's little old me sitting there with my book kind of thing. But as I said, I wasn't really expecting anything. I guess that's the good thing about the Queen's Book Asylum, is that I don't think they're going to say anything until the end, or at least till the halfway mark, right? So I've at least got 6 months or 5 months now.
Yeah, isn't it Bookborn that said they're going to start releasing their cut books this week? Is that the blog that's cutting this week?
There's already some that are going pretty quick. I know someone posted yesterday 5 books they'd already reviewed, and it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was
gone through all of them, hasn't she? Esme, I think she's gone through almost all of her books already.
Yeah, it was Esme she was doing a lot of them. It's just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. But I was gonna say I was similar with Katherine, where it's like I said, I was gonna enter last year. I was too late, so I decided I was gonna enter this year. And it was kind of, you go in with I'd heard a lot from Rob J. Hayes about it, and when guys like that are in the competition, you're like, okay, I know I'm not as big as some of these authors, but just being mentioned on the same list as some of these guys is an honor. Just fitting into it is fun. But I knew that, kind of Katherine saying, where get some extra promotion would be great. If nothing comes out of it, that's fine. I am planning to continue doing it in the future. So I almost thought, this is my first fantasy book, though it's not my debut novel. I was saying, all right, if this one doesn't do great, I'll enter the next one. Maybe that one will do better and stuff like that. So it's the idea of, though, meeting tons of authors, getting to meet a lot of readers, and I've loved the interactions on Twitter and Facebook and the Discord that everyone's been having. That's really cool, because I think the community is a big part of reading in general.
Mm-hmm. And Rob was actually on last night's panel, yesterday's panel. For people who missed it, you can go to the playlist and check it out. He officially made that panel the biggest panel I've ever hosted on YouTube. Yeah, he's a SPFBO veteran. So Bogdan, Peter, how about you guys? How did you guys come across SPFBO?
Yeah, I had no clue about it. I just joined Twitter, I think, this past January, so I really didn't see any of this stuff. And through just following other authors and things like that, I ended up finding about it and looking into it, and thought, okay, I think it's good timing. I released the book, this book, last March, so it's a little over a year, with many iterations since republished. But I think the coolest part about this whole thing is just the supportive writing and author community. Like, truly, I wasn't sure what to expect with it, but they really are. A lot of people have helped me out. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Stephen Hanna, but he does that first chapter called, and that's been entertaining as hell. A little brutal at times, but really kind of funny.
Did you figure out which book was yours?
Yeah, I was in communication with him. I knew I knew which one. And actually, he and E.L. Lyons, she's been kind of doing it. There's a couple of them, like Michael Roberti, I think. And but actually, I've reached out to each one of those that have done it, just because I'm curious about, like, it's great when you get family kind of reviews and stuff, friends and family, but I want to know like what other authors think, right? So really getting there, and they've helped a lot, and I've actually modified the beginning of the book quite a bit already, but yeah, I think that part is so cool. I had no clue how big this thing really was, and I just signed up right away. Luckily, I had my reminder set, and so I just entered it right away at 8. I'm on the East Coast, so I had no clue. I check in later in the day and realized this whole thing blew up and people are freaking out. so I just kind of, I guess, because I'm a noob, I didn't really know better and lucked into it, I guess.
Yeah. I think what I love about what you pointed out with the critiques too from like Stephen and them is that it feels sort of like a found family in this community, which is not what I was expecting. So even the critiques are like done in love and mean well, and they don't sting like necessarily a critic's would sting. But yeah. How about you, Bogdan?
Yeah, for me, so I was trying to put my book out there, and I actually ran into Dominic's Discord, and he redirected me to the how's it called, Indies Accords Discord, and everybody was talking about this SPFBO whatever contest of the best authors enter and blah blah, and I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. So yeah,
and here you are. Yeah, I think I had some starstruck too. I don't know about you guys. I think you mentioned, like Brendan said, about Rob J. Hayes. I saw some of the names on there. I had read about 80 of the books that are in this year before SPFBO began. And when I saw the list and I went through and I was like, oh, I've read that book. Oh, I've read that book too. This is so good. It was very daunting, but also encouraging. It's like, okay, I know if I'm going out, that I'm going out to the best.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, authors are people too. So
yeah, very down to earth. So I have been doing an Easter egg at the end of all of these panels. There's going to be one more question after the Easter egg too. So if you're watching and you're like, wait, don't go away. You can definitely buy everybody's books. The links are all in the description box, and everybody's social media website links are also in the description box, so you can go follow everybody. But we've been doing this fun question string, and every single panel has had a different version. Talked about villains, we talked about friends, we talked about pets, we talked about holidays. Today, your question is to talk about your main character's favorite memory. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's on the page in the book, but what would have been your main character's favorite memory before the story starts?
I can start if no one else wants to. So I have two main characters, Václav and Otilia. So they're similarly aged protagonists. So Václav, who is the more gentle, kind of caring main character, his favorite memory, because these two characters had been best friends at one point, his favorite memories were probably around the age of when he was 10 or 11, which was like 5 years before the book begins. And his being able to run out into the woods secretly at night with Otilia and adventure, and kind of with their ideas of demons or different things that would be in the woods, and kind of their ideas of we're fighting imaginary things, and the times before some of the tragic events that happened in the prologue 4 years before the actual book. So that was is that kind of relationship and the friendship. Otilia's favorite memory would probably be when she became what's called a Shiptuha, which is a channeler of a certain god's magics, of the wild goddess Jivana. a year after that, actually, after the tragic events that happened, and she kind of gained her powers and was finally able to meet the goddess that she had looked up to her entire life, and kind of became a powerful force because she hadn't been that before.
Yeah, I think I'm going last because I need to give a little bit more context. So
Yeah, no worries. These are hard questions. They're fun, but hard to think of on the spot.
I guess I can go next. My characters probably haven't had what anyone would typically call a normal childhood, mainly because it's a feudal world, and typical epic fantasy, there's also a cast of thousands. But Michael is one of the main characters. He was actually claimed by the warlord and has led a life of war basically since he's been 12 years old. So contacts go back further than that. Probably one of his favorite memories is 4 childhood friends. And he used to escape duty and classes and all those things that he should be doing and go running with his friends who were of much lower status to him, much to his mother's horror. There was a few little mummy dearest issues going on there as well. But he used to run into all the wrong areas of town with his friends before he was taken off into this world. And those 4 people are still friends in the current day. You don't see a lot of them in the book, but they are still there. Damien is also in the warlord's domain. He's the one who gets taken into this world. He has higher level abilities. And one of those things is being able to, so mind speech. And when you're at a higher level, he can hear what you're thinking, not everything you're thinking, but he'll hear random words and thoughts. And before you've had enough skill to put up a mind barrier between his own mind and everybody else, it can get really confusing and drive people mad, essentially, not knowing, what's my thought and what's someone else's. Or if someone is depressed, he could get that as well. So one of his best memories is probably running off. Like he was good at hunting, pretty good since he's in a war band because it's a useful skill, and at sword work, but he would love running off into the forest and hunting because simply it got him away from everyone and all of those voices that are colliding around in his head. Jacqueline is Ceylanen. She is both protagonist and antagonist, depending on which world she's in. Her fondest memory is probably with her big brother when she was little, and he was teaching her strategy and warfare and all that sort of stuff. Interestingly enough, in the book and where you enter, she's the best commander the Ceylanens have ever seen. And strangely enough, that same brother that was that fond childhood memory is now the king and is the one trying to kill her as well. So it's like that flip side of the coin and two. And I'll stop there because there's about 4 or 5 others and we'll be here half the night.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you'll have to read Katherine's book to see all the others.
Yeah, for me, Wilder, I think his favorite memory would be a little bit of backstory, I guess, first. He had gotten diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a few years earlier, so like probably right around the time he started high school. And it really got worse over the last year. And so as a high school graduation present, his mother got him booked a trip to Hawaii for vacation. And she had coordinated with his friends and classmates and stuff. And they held a little fundraiser unbeknownst to him. And so when he was presented with it, his friends had come over, and there's actually something I had in the original one that's not in the book now, but it's still part of the backstory. So, but they presented him with a $5,000 Visa gift card to be able to do whatever he wanted in Hawaii, because it was sort of his leg aches and stuff were so bad that he probably wasn't going to get to go on a vacation like this ever again. So But so that was pretty heartwarming for him to get that when his mom, gave it to him for a gift and his friends were over. So that'd be his favorite memory for now.
Oh, I love that. For now, read more to find out what happens next.
I feel like there's two types of books. There's those where they get more good memories throughout the book, and then those that it's only bad after that, depending on how dark it is.
Right.
Comparing The Hobbit versus Frodo's journey in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he got a happy ending, so
Yeah.
I guess he had some happy memories. Okay, so for mine, I didn't speak what my book is actually about. So in my world, we have people born with psychic powers, and they are considered like magicians and sorcerers and witches, and usually women get higher powers than men. And this led to like a separation in the populace, because we have like an empire type of faction where witches are executed and tortured and experimented on, and usually they're outcasts. And then we have on the other side, on the sorcerer side, where you're basically, if you aren't born with powers, you're basically a slave to your masters. And then we have like a third faction that doesn't have neither magic nor technology. So they're the runs of their of the world. And of course, there was at some point a fourth faction that was quite interesting, because the most powerful sorcerers fell in love with brilliant scientists, and they formed their own faction. And their communion resulted in a little girl called Serene that is basically a bioweapon at this point, because if you read about it, what they did to her was pretty brutal and unconventional. But once the two factions, the sorceresses and the empire, realized that those guys are really a threat, they put aside their differences and they ganged up on them and they wiped them out. But before that, a maid that was assigned to take care of Serene managed to escape with her, and brought her up with the third faction, the guys who are basically stuck in a medieval era with no magic and no technology. And I guess her best memory was baking pies with her adoptive mom. So that's
What kind of pie?
All kinds of pie. She loves them all. She's a big eater.
Everything but Reese's peanut butter pie.
Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, in the southern U.S.
Oh,
there's
boy.
a chain restaurant called Perkins. They've got Reese's peanut butter pies.
Things that shouldn't exist.
That's wrong. That's so many levels of wrong.
I think
In
this
fantasy,
is the first...
you can create anything, but not that.
Exactly. I agree with you.
I think this is the first panel where we've talked about pies. Oh goodness. Yes, and our favorite character's pie would be rapid fire.
Apricot pie. That's her favorite.
I'm gonna say apple. Maybe it's because it's mine, so I'm just biased.
We're allowed to share.
A little
Apple
blackberry
blueberry.
cobbler.
Oh yeah, with some ice cream. Mhm.
Yeah.
No, you can have the ice cream, but I'll have the blackberry cobbler. That sounds nice.
Do you have ice cream in your world?
Not in
Well,
mine.
yours, Peter's would be because you have a little bit of a
I
modern
do
day
have
era.
in mine. They do have ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have coffee, but it's called something else, but it's coffee. Probably courtesy of the fact that every time I go to write, right, the first thing I've got, if it's in the morning anyway, is coffee first.
It's very in your mind.
Oh goodness, yes. Catherine, favorite pie for your character?
Probably apple and blueberry, because that would be my favorite.
Oh, I have not had that combination of pie. I'll have to think about that now.
Mm.
Yeah, I think Arla's would probably be apple and mint in the Ballad Twisted Fate. She has a
That's
thing
an
for mint,
interesting
and
one.
she also loves apples. But I'm not a big mint fan. Character can keep the mint. So the last question, I know we're a couple minutes over, so we'll try to keep this one short to like 1 or 2 sentences. But we have about 5 months now that the kickoff has happened for SPFBO on June 1st for the bloggers to read, to review, to decide who they're putting up as semifinalists, and then ultimately finalists for all the blogs to choose from. What are you guys going to be doing for the next 5 months, writing, publishing wise, lurking in the blogs wise, while we pass the time?
I guess for me, Sacrifice, which is book 2, I just sent to the to my proofreader. So that'll come back and I'll do the edits for that. And that should be or will be published in October. I'm currently moving the third book, so Defiance, from draft to first draft. And it's kind of in that messy middle part where I'm almost dragging out more than what I'm actually putting in. And that'll be out next year. So I guess that's the rest of my year catered for, basically.
You can fix it in post. It's okay to have a saggy middle in the first drafts, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're for.
That's when we eat all the pie. While we're crying over the editing.
Got to put the big girl pants on when the edits come. They're going, no.
Who else? What's going on the next 5 months?
I guess I'll do this. I'm doing the same. I try to release my sequel. So yeah, I'm
Nice.
300 pages in and starting to hit the wall.
You got the tissues there just in case.
Yeah. Okay.
I love how we're all like, yes, we know this. We know this feeling so well.
Yep.
But better with betas than reviewers afterward.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I was telling my betas, hit me hard now because like I'd rather change it than have the 1-star review.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
So I'm currently working on my 4th book in the Frostmark Chronicles series, which is a series is coming out in November. That's with my alphas beta readers currently. And then I'm currently working on writing a new series because I wasn't working on actively writing the next book in the series while editing the last one because of too many overlapping things. And so that's going to be my first adult epic fantasy book with that I've codenamed Project RR, and that'll be coming out in the start of next year. So I'm excited about that one.
Yay!
Yeah, and I've got book 2 in the Scars of Hyrule series out now. It's titled A Surprising Ally. But so I'm currently working on book 3, and hopefully by that 5-month mark, I'll be able to get that mostly wrapped up. So I'm probably 25% of the way through now. So hopefully I can do that and have that's some big twists coming in book 3. So this was the one I was excited to kind of get up and finished. It was originally hoping to have all this done before any book contest, but because I hadn't been aware of SPFBO before, it came in a little earlier, but that's okay.
Awesome. Lots of sequels, lots of cool things in the works. The people who were on the panel yesterday know that I have my new cover for The Vow That Twisted Fate, the one that isn't going to look so YA, since it is not a YA, and one that reflects the fact that there are some dark elements to my epic fantasy. A little better. So on July 9th, I'm going to be rolling out an abridged version of my debut with the new cover, with some extended scenes at the end and some proofreading. Because even though I had all 5 levels of edits on Vow, the developmental and the line and the copy, and well, no, I skipped line, developmental and copy and proofreading and galley proofing, still had typos. I don't know how I got through 5 separate people and still had typos.
Hey, there's massive books that I read that still have like the traditionally published books that have typos in it. So
They do.
you feel a little special when you find typos. So as long as you don't have too many of them, you're good.
Hey, look,
Yeah, there's
typos
not
in the
many.
traditionally published make me feel a lot better, because I figure if they still have typos in it, it's okay that I found a typo.
Well, and the nice thing is it's easier for us to go back and change it because we don't have to go through the whole traditionally published system. I
True.
can just update the EPUB and
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
Yeah,
Much
yeah.
easier to fix.
Well, thank you all so much for taking time on a Sunday, especially here in the US when it's Father's Day, if you're in the US, to hop on and talk about your books, talk about SPFBO. I wish you all the best of luck. I hate that there can only be a handful of people to go on to finalists, but seriously, I wish everybody the very best of luck.
thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you. You
us.
too.
Thanks for having
Good
us.
Oh,
Thank you.
yes, good
Luck,
luck,
everyone.
everybody. And there is one final panel at 2:30, so about an hour from now, not quite an hour, for meeting SPFBO authors. If you have not caught the other 20-something panels, go to the playlist. You can find them. You can listen to all the Easter eggs, see what everybody's doing, follow some blogs, and pick a favorite to root for. Just like in the Hunger Games, may the odds be ever in our favor. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.